Welcome, everyone, to Real Estate on the Up, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the real estate world in Orlando. I'm your host, Kyle Madorin, and on this show, we're all about pulling back the curtain with the unfiltered truth about real estate. We're not just here to sell houses. We're here to provide concierge-style service because everyone loves being treated like a VIP. This podcast is your go-to resource for transparency, integrity, and the knowledge you need to make smarter real estate decisions. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a first-time home buyer, we've got you covered. So buckle up and get ready to move up in the world of real estate. It's time for Real Estate on the Up. I'm joined today by Ariane Williams, who is a real estate professional of many talents. Originally from California, she relocated cross-country in 2015 and has lived and worked in Central Florida ever since. Ariane's background includes pursuits as varied as an education in fashion merchandising to being a certified yoga instructor and health coach. I told you she's talented. It's always interesting to hear how people's life journey led them to real estate. And Ariane's occurred when she was teaching yoga classes at an apartment complex and became intrigued by property management. So now I want to let her tell her own story. So let's welcome her to the show. Here she is, Ariane Williams.
Hi.
Hello. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started in the real estate industry and property management, because it's an interesting story.
Okay, so as you mentioned, I'm from California originally. I actually had pursued a real estate license in California back in 2008, 2009, when the market was crashing. So it really wasn't a good time to get into it. And I really didn't have an urgency at that time to make money. So I didn't really pursue it the way that I probably should have. And I ended up becoming a yoga instructor instead. So then I did that when I was in California, health and fitness. It's really big out there. That's a thing. So then fast forward, I relocated to Florida in 2015, attempted to build my business here for health and fitness and yoga. A little more difficult because Florida is known more for their hospitality and like the apartment industry, which I didn't know until I moved here. So I was living at an apartment. Actually, I was teaching there on Sundays as a yoga instructor.
Oh, okay.
And one of my students was the leasing agent for the apartment community that I was living at and teaching
I
at.
see. Okay.
Yeah, so
That
I
was
was
your
like,
in. Yeah.
yeah. So we just got to talking, kind of became buddies. And she was like, why don't you look into property management, or leasing is what she said. And I was like, okay, I never thought of, I mean, actually I did. And I knew that the way for me to get into real estate, I felt like I needed to start in property management so that I can learn the industry. So it was a thought in my mind and I did have a plan, but she just opened that door for me. So she referred me to BG Staffing, which is a leasing, like property management staffing agency. That's all they staff for. They were sending me all over. At the time, I needed a place because I was staying at a place that was way too expensive for me. I was hosting at the Capitol Grill at the time, wasn't making much money. So I needed a job and a place simultaneously. So I remember what actually landed me this. So BG Staffing sent me, so mind you, I'm from California, so I don't really know Florida that well. So they sent me like a property, and the property happened to be in Cocoa. And I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, this is like an hour away.
Yeah, that's a pretty good drive. Yeah.
It was. So I actually called one of my really good friends and I was like, I don't know what I should do. They're trying to send me to Cocoa. Like, it's an hour away. Is it even worth it? And she was like, you never know. I would go. You never know. Right. So I go to Cocoa for the leasing position. It was a temp position. And me and the property manager there, we clicked right away. She had a leasing agent that was on her way out and was looking for someone. So I went back because they sent you on an assignment. So it was not just for one day, it was for until the other leasing agent was supposed to be coming back. Well, she never returned. This manager offered me the position for the leasing agent in addition to an apartment there. Now it was affordable housing. So I did start in affordable housing. So I started as a leasing agent for affordable housing in Cocoa. So
Wow.
I relocated to Cocoa. I moved into this, it was a 3 bedroom, 2 bath townhome, very, very inexpensive. I started off getting paid $12 an hour.
Well, you got to
But
start somewhere. You got to, yeah, work
yeah,
your way up.
and
Yeah.
she actually wanted to train me to take over her position as property manager because she was looking to move on to something in Orlando.
Wow. Okay.
So she was looking for a bigger property, more opportunity. I think that property was like 121 units or something small like that. So it was a really good start. So right away, she started training me, and her and my regional manager at the time, they both had a lot of faith in me. I don't know what they saw, but they were like, wanted me to grow. And within a year, I became an assistant manager.
That's
So
terrific.
that's how I
Yeah. You
started.
obviously have a passion for it. I mean, you can tell in the way you talk about it. So
I do. I do have a passion for it. I think that experience, being a single mother, not having income, looking for a place, something that for me and my children at the time, and there not being anything like, okay, so coming from always have living in a house to then now living in an apartment was a huge adjustment for me. I was a stay-at-home mom for 8 years. So getting back to work was difficult. So this opened, it kind of opened the door to that. And then from there, I built a career off of it. So it's a passion because it's what saved me, I guess you could say.
that's great. So it's a personal journey as well as a professional one. I think that's
Yes,
amazing. That's awesome.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
We have a lot of investors who listen. So one of the things that investors often deal with when they're building their portfolio, they're buying properties, they wonder whether or not it's worthwhile hiring a property manager, a property management company to help them with their tenant screening, with making sure that the properties are taken care of. So, how do you approach maximizing the value and performance of the properties you manage for those investors?
Okay. So I wrote a couple notes to this. So for me, it's all about knowing what my owner's expenses are. The first thing I like to do is ask if they have a mortgage, and if they do, how much it is, because a lot of our owners, they are trying to cover their mortgage. So I like to know that off the top so that I can have an idea of what we need to price this rental at. Like, what is it that they're trying to make? From there, I come up with ways to consolidate those costs and minimize them. So what I'm doing with my current position, I've worked for corporate up until April. Now I work for a brokerage. She got a portfolio that fell into her lap and needed a property manager because she didn't have the experience in property management. She's been a realtor and a broker, and it
Wow.
is two very different things. I think for what people don't really realize with property management is there's a lot of legalities involved and managing the day to day. When you're a realtor, you sell someone a home, you never have to deal with them again. You never have to deal with that house again. It's
At
becomes
least until
theirs.
they're ready to sell. Yeah, right.
Yeah, versus when you're managing a property, you're the one that's overseeing the day to day if there isn't a resident complaint. And I, before this position, managed over 2,000 properties out of Jacksonville.
Wow.
Yeah, so I understand the importance of resident sentiment, like positive resident sentiment, because initially those positive reviews is what builds a company. And what I wanted to do was offer, the first thing I came into the position thinking is that how can we, because it was like, so this is more traditional property management, so it's a little different from what I'm used to. And so you have different owners who do different things and want different things and use different vendors. So the first thing I told my broker when I came in is that I'm going to figure out a way for us to take over all of the responsibility and manage with our own vendors. It would just make it that much easier.
Streamline it.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, so that's what we're doing. So I onboarded a landscaper. I onboarded a pest control. I onboarded for like warranty for the appliances and the AC, because another thing is owners like to make the residents fully responsible, and that doesn't really blow over well. So, as a property manager, I am an advocate for both the owner and the consumer. So, I have to find something that works for the both of them. So, with my owners, I'm like, hey, if you pay $480 for this warranty, the resident can, that covers all of your appliances, which if you had to replace one, that would be the cost of just one appliance, you know?
Right.
So with this warranty, it covers all of your appliances. It covers maintaining the AC twice a year, and the resident gets to call it in. And if someone has to come out, they will repair or replace it at no additional charge. So now the resident is happy because they're not being held responsible for someone else's appliances, and
Yeah.
the owner gets to save a lot of money down the road. So my thing with maximizing our owners' investment is being proactive and not reactive.
I think that's great. I love the perspective that you're an advocate for both the owner and the tenant. I have never heard that before. And I think that's fantastic. And it's the truth.
Yeah, it is because I was once a, I mean, I own my home now, but I've rented. So I was once a consumer.
Hmm.
So I understand being a renter and feeling like, why should I be responsible for someone else's house? I totally get it. I can relate. And then the owner is like, well, I'm trying to get as much money out of my investment as I can. So if I have to keep repairing things, then I'm not really making any money. Well, let's find a common ground, is my thing. So,
Absolutely. So investors often, when they have a property, not only are they looking for the rental income, so they have cash flow, but they're also looking to maximize the appreciation of the property over time. So what advice would you give to property owners looking to maximize both their rental income and their property value?
maintaining maintenance. So that's another reason why I found the vendors. And so with landscaping, for instance, that's a really big thing. If you don't maintain the landscaping, then it could potentially become a bigger cost with replacing the sod. That's, you're looking at $2,000 to $5,000 just to replace the sod. So
Yeah,
if you have a landscaper that's regularly maintaining and then not leaving it up to the resident. So for me, I think for that appreciation is not leaving the responsibility all on the resident, because they're not going to take care of it the way that you would want your property to be taken care of, and you're the owner.
that's
So
true.
yeah, when it comes time for you to sell, you want to make sure that it's in a good condition. So I think that as an owner, for me personally, because I do plan to have my own property someday and manage them, I would maintain a lot of the things that I feel would be a deterrent if I went to sell it later. So,
Right.
like, keeping that cost of the landscaping, and then that's why I included pest control, because that could potentially become an issue.
Yeah.
You get someone who is not as clean as you would want them to be, and now you have pests inside, and then you're depending on them to call pest control to take care of it. They may not. So, what I found is that maintaining the pest control on the outside of the property, the perimeter, actually helps to prevent pests from getting inside the home.
Yeah.
And so the pests that you typically, if they are inside, are going to be like roaches and then bed bugs. But then that you hold the resident responsible for, because clearly, that's something that they brought into the property and it wasn't due to natural causes or the change in weather, right? Just to me, maintaining your investment so that when you do go to sell it, it's still worth or what you paid for it or more.
Yeah. No, that absolutely true. And these things can all get worse over time. Like you're saying, the sod, okay, so you stop maintaining the yard, then a few years down the road, it looks terrible. When you go to sell, then you do have to replace it, or you're going to get much less for the property. Same thing with pest issues. If you can take care of that preemptively, it's a much smaller problem than if you have to tent the house or do a whole challenge with an infestation later. So, no,
Right.
excellent point.
And then even charging it back to the resident, there's no guarantee that they're going to pay that. So
Right.
now that's a write-off, you
Yeah.
know, that's an expense that you're gonna have to write off. So I just, again, being proactive instead of reactive is my motto.
Great advice. Yeah. Now, there's a sector of this market which is very popular, which is especially in the Orlando area, which is short-term rentals. That's kind of its own ballgame. It's a little different than long-term rentals. And so you work with both, I think, right? You do short-term and
Hmm.
long-term.
Hmm.
So can
Yes.
you share, yeah, tips for owners then who are focused on that sector of it, looking to optimize their properties for short-term? What advice can you give to them?
Actually, this is my first experience working with short term. As I've stated, I've worked mostly in long term. I started in multifamily, then I went to SFR, which for those that don't know is single family rentals. And then now I'm doing property management for individual owners and then short term rentals. So, what I'm learning with short term, because I've already onboarded like maybe 3 new properties since I've been with the company. And what I'm looking for are those that are paid off, no mortgage. I feel like when you don't have a mortgage, then you have a lot more flexibility and you're able to set the rent, like you're able to adjust to the market. So
Ah,
right now
yes.
rents are starting to go down, right? So
Mhm.
you're because you don't have a mortgage, you don't have that overhead, you're able to adjust to the market. So if you have to bring that rent from 2300 say to 1700, you're able to do that. And I think with long term, that's a big thing because you do stand to make $4,000 to $6,000 a month in the peak season, which I'm in the villages. So if anyone who doesn't know about the villages, this is where all the snowbirds come.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is the ones that are living in the north where it snows, they like to come here in the winter months because as we know, Florida is always sunny and it's always humid. I mean, yeah, we get some rain and it may be chilly, but it's nothing compared to the snow.
Yep.
So, a lot of short term rentals are geared towards those snowbirds, and that's usually during the Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then January through March. So, I just think that at that time is when you stand to gain the most. So when you don't have a whole lot of overhead, you can really get a lot out of those short-term rentals. If I were going to do a short term, I would buy something that I owned and then I would just let it rent and sit back and collect the cash and put it in a reserves account and then just keep on flipping and investing. And then we do have that period in the summer where it slows down because then those people go back to their home because now it's sunny there.
Right.
So then now what we advise our owners is to rent for a longer term, 6 months and a day is considered long term. And then, you don't have to pay those taxes for short term rentals. So that's
Yeah,
kind of
it's a
how
good
we
strategy, right? Yeah.
maneuver. Yeah.
Mhm. So you've seen it all. I mean, you've done all these different sectors of property management. You have dealt with lots of interesting situations. So
Hmm.
what are some common challenges that you face in property management, and how do you generally overcome those?
I feel like the most challenging is, like I said, working with the owners and
Managing the
trying,
personalities, is it? Yeah.
try, I mean, the residents can be challenging too, don't get me wrong. I just don't take it very personally because I feel like looking for a house is stressful, looking for a place to live is stressful. I just try to reassure them that I'm here to help. So for me, the challenge is that it's hard for me to just look at it from all a business perspective. As I mentioned, I am a consumer as well. So trying to find the balance from like business and then also caring about the product that we're giving and the service that we're providing. That's kind of challenging to navigate depending on who you work for. Not all companies are necessarily concerned with the product that they're providing or the customer service that's being provided.
I hear that a
So
lot. Yeah.
yeah, so for me, that's challenging because I think that I'm maybe a little too compassionate for property management at time.
No, that's what makes you so good at it. That's important. Yeah, no, it sets you apart. No, but you're right. I think there are a lot of property management companies that don't put a priority on that for sure.
No, they don't. And you end up with unhappy residents not taking into consideration that if it's not for them, then we're not making any money if they don't want to rent our places. And then trying to keep them in for longer than a year. Like, I don't want to, that's what I mean when I say owners, I feel like they're not like, if we have to keep turning the property, that's more money.
Right.
Versus if we just provided customer service and can maintain our occupancy, then we don't have to have this high turnover where people like, I would like to keep a resident for 5 years if I could.
Absolutely, because then you don't have to do screening again and pay for the background checks and things. You don't have to worry about paying to have it repainted or carpet replaced. That's the same tenant living in it, so it
Yes.
absolutely, I agree with you. I think that's a smart strategy.
Even if I just have to every year at renewal offer a complimentary carpet cleaning. That's going to
That's
save me
great.
in the
Yeah,
long run too. Like
absolutely.
I just
Yeah.
think things that using incentives to keep people in their homes, that's why I think that we could care a little more about the consumers. That's just my opinion, but yeah.
I love that. Absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. It's a great perspective and it is unique. It's something I don't hear a lot in your business. So it's
Yeah.
great. So, taking a step back now and looking at your journey and where you're at now, what goals or aspirations do you have for your career in the coming years?
Well, so I feel like I'm already right now I'm a board member on my CDD for my community that I live in. So I've always wanted to be on the board. I've always been interested in working behind the scenes. The HOA sometimes can also be a little ridiculous. So I've always been very curious as to see like how are these rules and regulations coming into fruition? Who is in charge of that? Who comes up with these ridiculous rules sometimes? But I'm understanding why they're there. So that's already a dream or a goal that I've kind of achieved. And then also, I would love to have my own or our own with my broker. We're working like to get our own BTR community. BTR is where it's at right now. For those that don't know, it's build to rent. A lot of companies are doing that. I feel like there's a small window for us to get in there before that even becomes oversaturated and not
Yeah.
as lucrative. So, yeah, my goal is to have like my own BTR community. Right now, I'm looking for investors for anyone who's interested, just to that we could sell a plot of land to that's already plotted for it and build our own community so that we can manage it. And 100 would be great. I can hire myself an assistant. That could be my residual income. And then I can sell and help buyers on the side.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome goals. No, that's great. And it's amazing that you've got that planned out. You've got a direction you want to head. And with your unique perspective and the way you approach this, I have no doubt that you'll be able to achieve that.
Hey, thank you. Yes, I'm looking
Absolutely.
forward to it.
So if there are investors out there or anyone else looking to ask questions, get in touch with you, investors looking to have you start to manage their properties, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
You can call me. My number now is very viral. When I post it, now that it's all on my ads,
Mhm.
so my
That
number
happens
is,
in this business. Yeah.
yeah, now I don't have a personal phone, which is
Right.
fine. I don't really talk to anybody outside of the people that I love, but it doesn't matter now. So I'm not really private anymore. But my phone number is 407-853-0556. My email is Ariane W, and that's ARIANEW at krgproperties.com. I'm also on Instagram at O2BAri. I have my Facebook. If you just look up my first and last name, I'm there too. So yeah, I'm all over.
Great. They can definitely find you if they want to. So
Yes,
that's
they
good.
can. I'm not hard to find.
Ariane, thank you so much for joining us today. You're so passionate about what you do. It just shines through. I love that. And I know everyone enjoys meeting professionals who feel so compelled to help. And I think there needs to be more people who want to do this for the right reasons. And you're certainly one of those people.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been awesome. I didn't know what to expect. This is the first time I've been asked to be on someone's podcast, but I loved it.
Great.
Thank you.
You did an excellent job.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Take care. As we conclude another eye-opening episode of Real Estate on the Up, I want to express my appreciation for joining us. Thank you for being a valuable part of the Real Estate on the Up community. Your time and engagement mean the world, so make sure you subscribe and leave a review. Your real estate goals are my priority, and my team and I are here to provide the personalized attention and service that have earned us high recognition. If you have questions, need guidance, or are ready to make a move, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm just a message away. I'm Kyle Madorin. one of Rate My Agent's top 100 in the United States, signing off. Until next time, take care and make those real estate dreams a reality.